Hey all, Jason Levon, priest at St. Luke's Episcopal Church in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Welcome to another edition of Pause and Pray. The other day when Blue and I were out on a walk in the afternoon, we came across this wonderfully playful sight of a little girl dancing with her shadow and just finding all this joy in that whatever movement she made, her shadow mimicked it perfectly. She was actually with her dad, and her dad jokingly said to her, "Hey, why don't you try to outrun your shadow?" And she started giggling and running as fast as she could, and she'd look back and laugh even harder because no matter how hard she tried, her shadow was stuck to her. I got deep for a moment and thought of some words from the song Crazy Game of Poker by OAR in a live version where their lead singer Mark Roberge says, "You can run just as fast as you'd like, but you're stuck with yourself in the end." And I thought how true that is. And for most of us grown-ups, we don't find it as playful as that little girl did when we realize that none of us can outrun our shadows, no matter how hard we try. But thanks be to God that even though we may find ourselves living with some pretty deep, dark shadows, we also have experiences of something beautiful and rich and holy and meaningful, finding a way to step into those shadows. I think of the movie St. Vincent, which tells that story well. It stars Bill Murray. I'm a big Bill Murray fan, but this is a darker Bill Murray movie. He plays a character named Vincent who has his share of shadows. He's a hard-drinking, hard-luck New Yorker. He lives alone. He's become friends with a Russian woman of ill repute, but it's an incredibly superficial relationship. He gambles away everything he has no real friends really, except his wife, but she has Alzheimer's and is in a home for her. And then next door moves this mother with her young quirky son Oliver. He has his own shadows that come with all of this quirkiness. The mother is going through a divorce and ends up working late one night and asks Vincent if he would babysit Oliver. And that sets forth both Oliver and Vincent on this amazing journey as they find themselves stepping into each other's shadows. Vincent helps Oliver grow up and come to some peace with himself in all of his quirkiness, and Oliver helps Vincent find joy for the first time in a long while in his life. Both become instruments of something meaningful and rich, stepping into each other's shadows. And today in the Episcopal Church, we celebrate the Feast of the Transfiguration. And it's that well-known story where Peter, James, and John are taken up by Jesus up this mountain, and there in front of them, Jesus is transfigured. Now, in Luke's version, which we read in the Eucharist for today, Luke tells the story of in the midst of that transfiguration, Peter, James, and John becoming overshadowed by a cloud. They're drawn into the shadows, if you will. But there they find those shadows saturated by God's presence like never before. And they get a sense of God's activity in the person of Jesus like never before. And for Luke, whose gospel we reflect on today, more so than Matthew and Mark, the purpose of the transfiguration story for Luke is that those disciples then would go back down the mountain and step into the shadows of others, into those who are marginalized and on the outskirts of society. As followers of Jesus, we can all acknowledge that shadows are a real part of our lives. We can name those for ourselves. But today we are invited to pause and pray and reflect on those experiences we've had where we've discovered God stepping into those shadows with us. And in that prayer, in that pausing in that prayer, maybe we'll find the hope that we too can come to that deep sense of joy like that little girl did when she was running from her shadow. Or like Vincent and Oliver found in the movie St. Vincent. Because thanks be to God, we don't just realize that we're stuck with our shadows, but we also come to realize that we're stuck with God, stuck with something holy that continually seeks out those shadows and steps into them with the kind of love and life that makes us want to step out from our shadows and into the light again. God's peace and blessings to you all.